All right, welcome back. Today we're going to be learning how we can multiply and divide with rational numbers. And you can multiply and divide rational numbers by using the same rules to multiply and divide integers. So the product of or quotient of two numbers with the same sign, like a negative times a negative, or a negative divided by a negative, is always positive. The product or quotient of two numbers with different signs is the opposite, it's negative. So if you multiply a positive number times a negative number, that's negative. And if you divide a negative number by a positive, that's also negative. And any combination of these, as long as you have a positive and a negative sign, if you're multiplying and dividing, the quotient or the product is negative. To multiply two fractions, you multiply the numerators and then multiply the denominators. To divide two fractions, keep the dividend the same, so keep the first number the same, change division to multiplication, and change the divisor to its reciprocal. What that means is that if you have the number negative 1/2, 1 1/2 divided by 2/3, you keep the first number the same, you change the division to multiplication, and you multiply by the reciprocal of the second number. Kind of like what we do with subtraction, we change subtraction to addition and then use the opposite of that next number. To multiply decimals, you multiply as if both factors are whole numbers. Then count the number of decimal places in both factors to find out how many places are needed in the product. To divide a decimal by a whole number, bring the bring the decimal into the quotient, then divide as you normally would. So what that means is that if you're dividing 1 1/2 into 9, you move the decimal point over one place, and you move this decimal point over one place, and you put your decimal point up top. To divide a decimal by another decimal, you rewrite the divisor as a whole number. The decimal and the dividend the same number of places to the right. So kind of like what I did up here. So I'm going to do 3 examples with you. 2 of them are at the bottom of this page. So for the first one, we have 2 fractions that we're dividing. So we're going to change this to a multiplication problem and multiply by the reciprocal. So the first number stays the same. We change this division to multiplication. And then we change 2/7 into its reciprocal. So that's 7/2. Then we multiply the 2 numerators together. So -1 times 7 is -7. And 4 times 2 is 8. If we can simplify or rewrite, we would do that, but we can't, so we just circle. We're multiplying 2 decimals. We line it up as if it's just regular whole numbers. So remember that with multiplication, we just line up the last digit. We don't need to line up place values. If you are taught to line up place values, you can keep doing that. That's totally fine. So we multiply like normal. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3. And then since the factors have one decimal place, we move the decimal point in one place. A negative times a negative is a positive, so I don't need to worry about a negative sign, and I can just circle that. I did want to review how to divide with decimals because it might have been a while since you've done that. So when you divide decimals, the second number is the number that's outside the house, and the first number is the number that's inside the house. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take this decimal point and move it over so that now it's 16. And we take this decimal point and move it over once, so now it's 56. I put my decimal point up here in the answer. Now I've got to think about how many times 16 goes into 56. So I'm thinking that's close to 20. This is close to 60, so maybe it goes in 3 times. So I'm going to try 16 times 3 over on the side. So I got 48. I could try 16 times 4, but I think that's going to be too much. 6 times 4 is 24. 4 times 1, 64. Yeah, so that was too much. So it goes in 3 times. 3 times 16 is 48. So I subtract to get 8. Bring down the 0. And now I have to see how many times 16 would go into 80. So it definitely goes in 4 times. I'm going to try 5 times. So it goes in 5 times. So 5 goes there. 5 times 16 is 80. And I end with a remainder of 0. I have a negative divided by a positive. So I know my answer is negative 3.5. So what you're going to do now is you're going to go and work on these problems at the back. You're going to use what you learned in the video to help you answer these questions. These questions at the bottom are more challenging, so if you get stuck on them or are too intimidated or feel unsure of yourself, you don't need to answer them right now. Once I check off this worksheet, you're going to go and get the exit slip and work on the exit slip. And if you don't finish the exit slip, you'll need to finish it for homework. All right, let's get started with our work. Show me when you're done.